Welcome to the Journey Church podcast. We are really glad you're here. Whether you're listening on your drive to work, at the gym, or somewhere in the middle of a busy week, our hope is simple, that today's message encourages you, challenges you, and helps you take one more step toward Jesus. If you enjoy what you hear, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Now, here's this week's message.
Today, for all of us in the room, I want to start with a question that's going to seem really specific, but there's a purpose behind it. So here's the question. So what do you do when your basement is flooded because the storm is raging, the power is out, you're home alone, and you've never hooked up a generator in your life? Here's what you do. You call your husband, who is always out of town when this happens. So this has happened to my wife. Gosh, we can't even count the number of times I've gone out of town and our basement is flooded. But one specific time, it was really bad. We have a generator. It's not a whole house generator. You have to pull it out of a shed and hook it up and plug it into the pole outside. And I'm not joking you. I get this call. I'm out of town, and my wife is literally, she says, listen, the power's out. The basement is already flooded. I need help. I've got to pull out the generator. It's like, no, you don't. She said, no, you don't understand. It's going to keep raining. The raining is not stopped. The power is out if I don't do this now. And I was like, okay. So she is literally in her galoshes, like her rubber boots. She's got a raincoat on. I was like, do you have your earbuds? Like, my earbuds don't plug into my new phone. I can't get it. So she's holding her phone, talking through and trying to do the thing. The first thing she has to do is she has to go down in the basement, which, by the way, scares me a little bit because she's going to walk through water. And I was like, hey, just make sure the water's not so deep that, because if it's going to go over your boots, if the electric comes on, you're dead, right? So she's got her boots on. She walks through. She made it, guys. Don't worry. She made it over. But in our basement, you have to pull this button. I don't know what to call it. It's at the top of the electrical box. You have to switch it from main power to generator power, and it's really hard to pull. And she pulls it over. She's like, okay, is that it? No, babe, the generator has to be hooked up. She's like, oh. So she has to go outside in the rain. It's still raining. Have you ever pulled like a 300-pound generator that has really small wheels through a muddy yard? I haven't, but my wife has. So she pulls it out of the shed. She works it around to the electrical pole. She's like, okay, now how do I start it? And I'm like, well, you do this and do the choke and you do the button. She's never done any of this before, guys. And she gets the power running. The sump pump starts running. All the water gets sucked out. And she goes, great. I was like, you're done. She goes, no, now I get to clean the mess up. And I'm literally like, oh, gosh. So here's why I asked this question. We're starting this series called Fixer Upper. And we're not going to be talking about home renovations the whole time, but here's the reason why we're talking about it. I believe that most of us have things that we want to ignore, like that basement. Because here's what I know. If she hadn't gone down into that basement, if she hadn't cleaned up just the mud and the silt that was left behind, if she hadn't gotten the water off the drywall, it's not a finished basement or anything by any means, but you know how drywall does when it gets soaked up water, it just all swells up and causes problems. If she hadn't gone down there and that, she hadn't gone down and done this, if she hadn't gotten things stringed up, things fell over because they floated up and if she hadn't got there's just a mess down there. Can you imagine if she was like, I guess we won't be going back down there again and just leave it alone. That's not the way you handle problems, but a lot of us, that's the way we handle problems that are going on inside of us. A lot of us ignore the things that are going on internally. And so this series, the next few weeks, is really just all about us just being honest about the fact that we often want to ignore the internal messes in our lives because those internal messes can be hidden. And we just want to pay attention and put all of our focus and energy on the external messes, which by the way, that's fine. So those of you, but you're at work, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, if these people would do their job, and if they would just shut their mouths, and if they would just not bother me ever and don't ever come to my office, there's a certain amount of externals that, by the way, I get it. There's people who need to fix themselves. Great. But you also have some internal things that affect how you treat the people at work. And the same thing's true about your people that you love most at home. All of us we want to have these easy, loving, grace-filled, supportive, encouraging relationships in our home and with our friends. But a lot of us don't have that, and we think it's all their problem. They need to do this, and we pay attention to all the externals. Well, I wouldn't have said that if they hadn't, and it wouldn't have been this way if we hadn't been in this mess, and that whole thing happened. I didn't have any control of that, but let's just be honest for a second. Nobody wants to consider the fact that those external problems are also about what's going on inside of us. In fact, the way we respond to those things, it comes from our internals. It's not just external. So here's kind of the bottom lines of the whole series. If you want to keep an eye on this for the whole time. What's going on internally affects how we respond externally. In fact, I know what some of you are doing right now, and I wrote this down. I don't have internal struggles. I have people problems. And here's what I want to say about you. You actually don't think you have any emotional problems at all. You think it's everybody else causing you to feel the way you feel, and that's their problem. And if it weren't for them, you wouldn't have a problem internally. And I just want to look at you and go, are you a robot? Because those of you who deny the fact that you have internal things that actually cause external things to happen, what you're trying to say is that you're not a human being. Because we have things going on inside of us all the time. We have emotions, we have thoughts running through our brains. The internal stuff actually affects you more than you think you do. So some of you, I actually have to convince over the next few weeks that something's even going on inside of you. Others of you think this, hey, I've got it all fixed, Jarrod. I just keep moving forward. There's no use to dwell in the past. And to you, I would say this. You know what happens when you just push things down into the basement and ignore them, don't you? They rot and they mold and they eventually make their way upstairs. You cannot play that game for very long. If you're the type of person who's like, Jarrod, I just keep moving forward. I never look back. Listen, if you are that kind of person, over the next few weeks, I'm going to convince you that you just need to slow down a little bit. I'm not saying you need to dwell and stay and you have to become sort of an emotional mess at your home. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, could you possibly think that some of the internal stuff you deal with is actually what's causing some of the externals? And then other of you are, you are constantly overwhelmed by what's going inside of you. And you don't have any tools to deal with it. You constantly feel all the things, and you are going to be easy to convince you have to look inside because you're always looking inside. But I also want to tell you over the next few weeks, I want you to do more than look inside. I want you to find some real solutions, some tools to help you move through that stuff. So what I'm saying through this whole series is that what's going on internally is going to affect you externally. So let's think about some scenarios. Some of you are bosses, and you're at work, and you think you can hide your anxiety about the budget. You think you can hide your sort of like distrust that you have about a certain group of people who are doing the part of the job, and you think you can hide how you feel about those people. You think you can hide how you feel about the underperformers. You think you're doing a great job of being like a general coach to everybody. Just so you know, everybody who works for you knows what's going on. Now, they don't know the specifics, but they know there's something inside of you because you often respond to problems and things differently when you're stressed than when you're not stressed. And you respond to requests for things differently when you're stressed than when you're not stressed. And all that internal stuff is actually one of the main things why people don't come to you with their problems is because they don't know which one of you they're going to get. And you thought it was all your employees' problem. I'm not saying your employees don't need to get better. They do. I'm not saying your employees are perfect. They are not. Here's what I'm saying. Everything that is going on inside of you affects what you say, the way you say it, and how everyone feels it coming from you. And if you're a boss and you don't recognize that, you know what's going to happen? You will hurt every single person you lead at work. Parents, your kids need to get fixed. The reason why I know this is because I see them in Walmart with you. You need to work on your kids. There's a problem there. But let me also say this, as a parent, and have been there. Don't you find the way that you think you're being really good at not showing your kids what you're really worried about? Don't you think that you're hiding the stress and the tension between you and your spouse? Don't you think you're really good at hiding how much you worry about what's going on with them at school and how much is going on, and their grades? And don't you think you're really good at just like being this really good parent and like they don't really know what's going on? Listen, your kids know. You know how they know? Because of the way you respond and how you say it and how they feel when you do. And wouldn't it be wonderful as a parent to figure out how to land someplace internally so you can actually deal with the externals without the internals driving more external problems in your family? Single people. Y'all thought I was going to skip you. All the single ladies, and guys. So let me just talk to you for a second. We see you. All of us married people see you overworking yourselves because you're single and you have more free time than all of us with kids. And so we see you doing more work than everybody else and working yourself into a completely bad space. You're run by your work. You say you don't have time for friends, but you do, but you don't make those choices. And we watch from the outside, and here's what you think we're saying. You think what we think about you is, man, you should really be further along in your life. Why haven't you found somebody yet? We're not thinking that at all. Your mom might be, but we're not. Right? We're looking at you going, man, just slow down a bit. Just slow down a bit and spend some time. Maybe some of your singles are even to the point where you're like, you start to blame all the married people and all the people around you for the things that you're feeling right now because you think things about them that aren't really true. But you create distance from the people who are married in your life, even people who used to be friends. You know why you do that? Because you don't be reminded what you actually think about yourself, which is what you think everybody else is thinking about you. So your internal struggle is actually creating the isolation you don't want. Wow, Jarrod, you're so wise. I know. Just hang on. Hang on. We'll get to my stuff in a second. Here's what I want this series to be. And I wish I could, I don't know. I'm just going to read the way I wrote it so you guys can understand how important this is to me. Fixer Upper is all about helping you feel confident enough to go down into your own basement and to check it out and figure out what to do. That's what I want for the next few weeks. I don't want anything more than that. I don't know how to solve your problems. Not everybody needs a counselor. Not everybody needs to come to me and try to, I don't have answers to your problems. That's not it. I want you to feel confident that you can go down in your own basement. You can look at the mess and identify what the mess is, and you can take your next step to fix whatever's going on down there. Because what I know is when we don't pay attention to what's internal, it will wreck us. So here's where we're going to get started. I have one verse to read to you today. It's the perfect Sunday. You just got to know one verse. We're going to walk away with one verse. Jesus said something. He's in the middle of these conversations with all these Jewish leaders, and they keep trying to catch him saying something wrong or talking about something in a way that, man, they can catch him and say, no, it's not the way Moses described it. And they can't really do it. They're never successful, and they never get him in the right, but they keep asking questions. So in the middle of one of these conversations, Jesus says something that's really important for us to understand as we start walking through all these internal things. Here's what he says in John 8:12. He says, I am the light of the world. And all of us go, well, that's not right. We have the sun. We know what the sun is. Jesus was not claiming to be the actual sun, physical sun in the world, okay? Jesus actually created the sun. He knew the difference between that and himself. That was created. He was not. He's been there since the beginning. Here's what he's saying. He gave us a great, powerful image. I am the light of the world. In other words, I give you clarity where you don't have any. This is really key because this next part, as he talks about this, he says, so here's what he says. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the, read it, light of life. Haven't you felt those times when you're emotionally, internally struggle and you are confused about what to do next? Now, if you're not sure you believe in Jesus, I get this. This is, for us that follow Jesus, this is more than just some character who's talking about stuff. This is not just some guy who, we truly believe that Jesus died and rose again. And so when he says this, as we try to follow him, what we're trying to figure out is how this can be true. How can Jesus give me clarity? How can he give me light when everything else in my life seems so dark? How does that even work? Because we are all the trying, and if I were going to phrase it, I wrote it out this way. I think if I were going to rephrase Jesus' words into words that I would say out loud to you today, I would say this. If you live life the way Jesus is teaching you to live, you just won't be in the dark. To which you say, you mean I won't have pain? No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying when you follow Jesus, there's no pain, everything's happy-go-lucky. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you won't be stuck not knowing what to do about what's going on in your life because he'll give you clarity. And here's the thing I think about when I think about this light of life. I don't think we think about this very often. But when you are in the midst of pain and darkness and confusion, and you're not sure what to do next because of what happened with them and what happened there and financially, and I lost my job, and oh man, she's moving out, and I don't know what to do about that. No, my kids, they're medical conditions, all the things, right? You're just collecting all these things. When you get so confused, and you know what you start to do? You start to find anything that will answer that question for you, how to feel better. And listen, a lot of us create a false reality. We start lying to ourselves because it makes us feel better. And rather than telling ourselves the truth about, man, this is really hard, and man, this is too much for me to handle, and man, I don't know what to do next, instead of admitting all those things that would be true, we just go ahead and lie to ourselves. I got this. There's no problem here, and I'm just going to keep moving forward. We can figure this out. Got this. I don't need any help. I don't need anybody to know about this. I'm just going to keep this down here in my basement. Nobody will know what's going on. If we keep doing that, we lie to ourselves. And you know what happens when you lie to yourself long enough? You start lying to everybody else. And once you've started lying to everybody else, you're living in darkness because there's no clarity. There's no truth. There's no anything to depend on. And here's what Jesus is saying. You got to stop making assumptions about where you are emotionally. Because once you go from the place of feeling it, hey, you're going to feel trouble. There's going to be problems. There's going to be trouble stuff, and it's going to be hurtful. And you're going to have to deal with it. But if you start lying, you start making assumptions about how other people think about you and what is really true about yourself, and you start making assumptions, you start working off those assumptions, and you create brand new systems that actually drive you to live in a false reality. And Jesus is going, no, I'm the light of the world. Look at me. So I'm going to share with you something I found out about 12 years ago. I did a study with some guys. The study was called Renovate. I've stolen a lot of stuff from today's sermon from it. And if you want to go look it up, I'll give you a copy of it. You can have it. I'll print you off a copy of it. But what I learned are there's three main areas that most people deal with when it comes to telling themselves lies. And I want to show you. Let's just see if you find yourself in one of these. The first one is this. Some of your greatest need is security. You believe that if you don't feel safe, you'll do anything to make sure you feel safe and secure. Which is why some of you save every penny. And you save everything you earn. And you save it for that one day because you know everything's going to go wrong. And that's why when things start going bad, you go and check your bank account and you go check your savings account and you make sure everything's going to be good because it makes you feel safe to have that money in there. And when you feel safe, you're okay. But when you don't have that money, you don't feel safe anymore. Which is why some of you in relationships, if you're wired like me, this is one of the ones that drives me nuts. This is why I'm such a people pleaser. Because I believe that as long as I can keep her happy and him happy and them happy, then I'll be safe because then they won't leave me. Because if I was alone, it would be the worst thing in the world. If I ever thought nobody would be my friend, I would be a blubbering mess. And that's why I do whatever other people want me to do, even when it's not healthy for me to do. And some of you are in relationships like that because you believe that I will stay safe. Even though this person is not safe, at least I'm safe because I'm in a relationship with them. And so Jesus is looking at you over the sidelines going, but bro, I'm your safety. I love you. You don't need to do those things. I'm going to take care of you. I'm your rock. I'm your anchor. I'm the thing that makes you secure. You can lean into me, but instead you create this false reality where you think you can keep yourself safe. And by the way, you're not going to be always safe from what you think is safe, but I'm walking through you with it, and you'll be safe in the long run because I'm with you. That's the truth of what's going on here. Here's the next one. Some of you, your drive is for significance. You believe, I don't know where this came from or why, but you are jealous of a sibling. You are jealous of maybe a cousin. You are jealous of somebody ahead of you, and you drive yourself nuts trying to get the next raise, trying to make sure you're at the top of your class. I'm not saying it's bad to want to be at the top. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, but what drives you is the fact that you want people to know that you matter. And maybe you think it's because your parents put this on you. Maybe they did. I don't know. But maybe unintentionally, they sent the message that you're not worth anything unless you perform, unless you're at the top, unless you're the best. And you try to prove with everything in your life that you, for some reason, you feel like you have to prove to everybody, I have significance and I have value because look what I did. And that's why you have trophies. That's why you have awards. That's why you collect all this stuff. And you have this thing that says, I'm not significant without blank. You know what Jesus looks at you and says? He says, I loved you before you ever got good. And I'll always love you. That's what Jesus says. And that's the truth of your situation. And you're over here playing in this false reality that you have to somehow earn your significance. And Jesus is like, no, you're already significant because I love you. Here's the last one. This also gets me. I'm going to open up on this one. Those of us who are wired like me, you will avoid pain at any cost. I am always chasing satisfaction. I just need to have fun. Something goes wrong, throw a party. Right? This is why some of us deal with addiction issues. Because we figure out if we can make ourselves feel good enough in the moment, we'll forget about all the real hard stuff that's going on inside our hearts and our souls. And if we can just make ourselves feel good for a few moments, man, if we can catch that high, if we can get that dopamine hit, man, whatever it takes to feel good, we can just ignore all the problems behind us because, man, we are chasing satisfaction. This is also why some of you in the room, you have all the things that you ever wanted. You have the house, you have the car, you have the people around you, you have the work, you have the job, you have the respect, and you still sit at home sometimes and you go, is this all there is? Because you're chasing a satisfaction. And Jesus looks at you and says, hey, I'm the light of life. His claim was, Paul wrote about this. When you're connected to Jesus, you have access to joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It's all yours. You don't have to go find it anywhere. You already have all the satisfaction you need. And so here's what I think. I think that rather than trying to create our own false reality, here's what I'd like to convince you of the next few weeks. I'm not saying you need to become an emotional mess. I'm definitely not saying you should ignore your emotions. But I think you should realize this. If you would slow down long enough, you would realize this is true, that your unmanaged emotions is what leaves you vulnerable to the lies you believe about yourself and about the people around you. It's because you haven't done the work to slow down and figure out what's really at the core of this relational break. What's really at the core of me when I yell at my kids? What's really at the core of me when I get mad at work? What's really at the core of me when I come home and I think there's nothing worth living for? What is at the core of me? What is the internal part? And here's what I'm saying. You don't need to go home and have a pity party. That's not what I'm saying. You don't need to go find a counselor right away. Here's all I'm saying. Will you be willing to admit over the next few weeks that you, when you hurt, do not immediately reach for the truth? I don't think anybody that starts hurting, that their immediate response is like, I got to go figure out what's really true right now. I think most of us stop in the middle of that hurting and go, what's going to make me feel safe or significant or satisfied right now in the moment, even if it's a lie? And we are willing to live with the lie because it helps us cope with the problem of now. And all we've done is put ourselves in a position to ignore what's in our basement. And it's going to cause the whole thing to crumble eventually if we don't pay attention. And Jesus is over the sideline, seriously. He's listening to all this, and he watches you do this. He's watching me do this. And he's going, I already told you. I'm the light of the world. And if you follow me and do life the way I told you to, you'll find that I'm the light of life. That you actually can have hurt and pain and have something else. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to learn how the next few weeks to test your emotions against the light of Jesus. Because your emotions aren't bad. What you're feeling is not, it's not because you're wrong. You don't need to go home and blame yourself for feeling blank or this or that or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the way you interpret those emotions and what you deal with them is often the lie. You open yourself to the lie. So I want you to learn how to take your emotions, your grief, your guilt, your shame, and treat them like an early warning system. I want you to notice things that are going on in your life that hurt. And I want you to be like, oh, that's a cue for me to pay attention. Something's going on in me that I need to try to figure out. It's an early warning system for me to go and do something about it with this relationship because I realize I feel jealous. And when I feel jealous, I should go talk to them about it. Or when I feel angry, it's because I feel like you were disloyal. I need to go have that conversation. When we start to interpret our emotions by the light of Jesus, by what he says is true, we actually get to take action in ways that helps us solve the overall problem. Not that you're going to fix all your problems, but that you'll have actual truth and clarity about what to do next in the middle of your darkness, in the middle of your confusion. So, here's what I want you to teach you to do. I want to teach you how in the next few weeks to be vulnerable in front of God. You don't have to get up here and be vulnerable next week like I do. It's my job to be vulnerable and tell you what my problems are. You notice I've never come to you guys, anybody after service and be like, hey, did that really hit home? Tell me about your problems. I understand that's not for everybody. But here's what I want for you. I want you to feel so comfortable in the next few weeks, getting used to identifying the things that are going on and going to God with them, that it becomes a routine for you, that it becomes natural for you. Here's the way a psychologist and pastor, his name is Steve Cuss, he wrote a book called The Expectation Gap. Here's what he says in that book. I love this quote. He said, I have learned to allow God's voice of love to sneak past my own defense mechanisms. That's what that whole security and that significance and that satisfaction thing is that drives you. It's a defense mechanism against being hurt, and you don't want to be hurt. So you play this game where you act like you're not getting hurt all the time. And Steve Cuss says, no. I've gotten really good at just letting God's love sneak past all that. And then he says this. He said, I am now comfortable being vulnerable and exposed in God's presence. That's what I want for you. I want you to get really good at being honest with God about where you are internally. I'm not even going to push you to be honest with everybody in your life. Maybe a few people. I'm not going to push you to be honest in front of a whole crowd of people for sure. I just want you to get used to being honest with God about where you are. Because here's what I know. There's 3 things I want you to practice this week. This takes practice because it's hard. Here's what's number 1 I'm going to ask you to do this week. I want you just to get good at identifying what's in your basement. And somebody said in first service after they said, hey, I built my house on a slab for a reason because I don't want to go down into my basement. That's clever. So you figure that out for yourself. If you're on a slab, the metaphor doesn't work. But I want you to identify what's going on in your basement. I just want you to get good at this. Here's what I want you to do with this. This week, I want you to find just a few minutes to be alone in quiet, which means, 1, those of you who have kids, get up way before they get up or go to bed way after they go to sleep. You know why? Because if you try to do it at normal time, they're going to interrupt you and you're not going to have the quiet, okay? Find quiet. Don't take your phone. Don't take it. I know what you'll do. After 60 seconds of sitting by yourself in stillness and quiet, you know what you're going to do? You're going to look at your phone and you're going to doom scroll. Okay, so don't take it. You leave it in the house, you go outside, go for a walk, get away. Here's what I challenge you to do. Just sit and ask yourself a couple of questions. Identify what's going on by doing this. 1, what has been the driving emotion? Don't go back to the other slide. Yeah. What's going on inside? What's the emotion I'm feeling right now? What's the driving emotion that's really driving my conversation with my wife or my so-and-so or so-and-so? Just try to find that emotion, what it is. Just identify it. Don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel wrong about it. Just identify it. Just go, this is what I'm feeling. And then ask the question, what assumptions are my emotions creating? Because I feel that, what am I believing is true? What assumptions am I making about them and about myself that I need to question here? And here's the last one. This is going to be the hardest one. And this is, I want to tell you, this is why we're here as a church. What does Jesus say about me that's true? If you're not sure how to find that answer in the midst of something, this is why we are here for you. You can come by the suite afterward. I can give you some Bible reading plans that might help with something. If you want to get my phone number in the suite afterward, I'll text you. You can text me any question. Be like, hey, what about this passage? It's like, yes, that one. Do that one. Hey, what about this? Hey, try this one out. Read this one when you think about that problem. Because I've been realizing over my lifetime, when I start to take what is true and match it up with what I'm feeling, I'm oftentimes lying to myself. And then I can start acting on the truth. And I know what my next step is when I act on the truth. This is what a quiet time with God looks like. This may change the way you read the Bible. You may have been trying to get through the Bible in a year, which is awesome. Do that. But also, what if you started reading the Bible in a way to bring the truth to bear on the actual things that you're hurting in you? And what if you went to the Bible because you were trying to look for truth that would ground you and give you light in the middle of confusion? And so when you read the Bible, you were actually matching it up with what was going on inside of you. And then you could start to say, wait a minute, I'm feeling this, but Jesus says I should forgive that person even if they've wronged me 77 times. Oh my goodness. If that's the truth, I may need to try that this week. Because what I've been trying has not been helping. All I've been doing is doing a cycle of problems, and I keep blaming everybody else, but maybe I just need to go and forgive. Maybe that's the answer. Jesus starts to bring clarity. And when you start to bring clarity to your life, and you start to see what's there, you can actually make progress. So I know this is going to be hard, so let me wrap it this way. Jarrod, how are we going to do this? I know. Let me tell you what my hope is for you. This is going to be hard. And the reason it's hard is because you've never done it before. That's the only reason it's hard. It's actually not that hard once you get into the routine of doing it. I feel confident that my wife can now go without any instruction and flip the switch in the basement from regular power to generator power. Now, she's going to gripe about getting out the generator by herself every single time. But here's what I know. She's done it once, and it gets easier every time. She knows how to do it. This is just practice. all I'm encouraging you to do for the next few weeks is dig into some things that are internally and practice doing this thing called being vulnerable and exposed to God, because as all Jesus followers start to figure out when you do this thing, when Jesus was ending his life, he was right before he gets arrested. He's trying to prepare for his disciples for this end. He said, it's going to be chaotic. They're going to come get me. They're going to kill me. And they're all like, no, no, no. And he's like, no, no, seriously, it's going to happen. And by the way, most of you you're going to run away. You're going to betray me. You're going to, Peter, you especially, you're going to say things 3 times. You didn't even know me. Like, it's going to be for real. And he's telling them all this, and they don't get it. And he looks at them and says, but it's going to be okay, because I have overcome the world. That's his quote. He's the light of the world, and he's overcome the world. Listen, if you are a Jesus follower, and you think what you're going through is too big for Jesus to handle, too big for you to trust him with it, and too big for him to be able to provide any clarity for you, you know what you told him? You've just told him he's not who he said he was. And if you believe Jesus died on a cross and came back to life under his own power, and he said he has overcome the world and he's the light of the world, why won't you just trust him with that? Because if he's overcome the world, then your money problems, and your job problems, and your relationship problems, and your this problems, he has overcome them. And you can trust him with it. And you can go to with him, and he can tell you what to do next, because he is the light of the world. And he will give you clarity and truth in the midst of darkness every single time. Let me pray for us. Father in heaven, thank you so much that you gave us Jesus to provide us clarity for when we get into darkness and we get confused, because we all do it. God, we get confused by our emotions. We get confused by our relationships. We get confused by work. All these things provides darkness. And God, would you just help us to remember that you gave us truth. You gave us light. So help us to lean into that. And then second of all, I just pray for those people this week who are hurting, who are struggling, who don't know what's next, who are confused. God, I pray that they would try this out this week, to just go home and sit and identify what's going on. Think about the assumptions they have, and would they line it up with the truth of who you are and what you said to do and how to live life. God, I pray that we would all find freedom in the very simple truth that you love us more than anything else in our lives. And I pray this in Jesus' name.
Thanks for listening to the Journey Church podcast. If today's message encouraged you, we'd love to help you keep taking your next step. You can find more messages, resources, and updates through the Journey app on our YouTube channel or at journeycallaway.com. And if you're ever in the Murray area, we'd love to meet you in person. We gather every Sunday at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Remember, God is for you, and so are we. We'll see you next time.